Tribal House Network.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. We face our common difficulties. They concern, thank God, only material things.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Aaron, your host, as you guys know. With me, I've got my good buddy, John Milan. I'm currently traveling right now, and I've been in the UK. I'm in London, England, soon to be in Dublin, Ireland. John can let me know if that's a bad accent or not.
It's a bad accent. No, it's okay. It's passable.
So, John, just sort of introduce yourself to everybody listening. Give us a brief synopsis on who you are, where you're from, because, you know, like a lot of people in England, you're not exactly British.
Yes. So yeah, quite different. I'm, obviously not English whatsoever. I'm fully European, though I get told that I have a North American accent of some sort, mostly Canadian. Sometimes they say I sound like I'm from the Midwest. I've only been to the US once for a road trip, so that's the extent of it. I don't have any relations whatsoever. So I'm Danish French, but I have lived sort of all over the place. I lived in South Africa and all over Africa most recently before the last sort of 10 years that I've spent here in London. I do have a lot of my family here. That's the basic sort of nationality part. Yeah,
I can see the West American type thing that maybe people are going for, because you have almost like a proper voice, but it doesn't sound necessarily unlike Fraser Crane on TV, right?
Okay.
Where it looks like you went to a posh school, or something.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yeah, so, and I'll kind of give the brief skinny on how you and I met. So it was through the love of traveling. I have done a lot of traveling. John's done even more traveling. He's lived all over the map, literally. About 10 years ago, I was working in a small little independently ran hostel in Drumnadrochit, Scotland.
Correct.
I believe it was the northernmost tip of the Highlands there.
Or how your boss used to pronounce it. She used to say, and I forget her name now, but she'd say, Drumnadrochit.
Yeah. Wendy. Her name was
Wendy in the full Inverness Scottish accent.
Yeah. So, and anyway, John was traveling through like a lot of backpackers were, day in, day out. And we befriended on the basis of Metallica, the shared love of Lars Ulrich. He's a fellow Dane, sense of pride. And I think I had probably mentioned that I was trying to score tickets, or maybe just talking about my love of it. And you're like, oh, I just saw them in London, because you had seen them on the first leg.
I forgot about that, actually. Yeah.
You had already seen them, and we had bonded on that. And then I think it was after the fact, after you had left, I had kept contact, and I was like, hey man, they're playing London again. I'd like to go.
Yeah.
And I found some tickets online, Gumtree, right? Is that the website? It's like the Craigslist.
It's a good place still. Yeah, it's like Craigslist sort of thing.
Less creepy. Or do people?
It's certainly not creepy. I didn't know Craigslist. Does Craigslist have that sort of reputation?
A lot of people want to meet up for quick blowjobs. A lot of truckers, that have straight families and kids.
I'll be careful when I'm surfing on Craigslist. Next time I'm in the US.
They're pretty open. They pretty much say in the headline, "Hey, looking for a close encounter."
That's good to know.
Man-loving man, straight during I'm 100% straight, I swear. But if you want 5 minutes of man love, meet me at the corner of this truck stop. So
premium.
I mean, they're pretty open about it. So if you get yourself in that situation, John, it's your own fault. It means you can't read, or it means you really wanted it.
That sounds fair.
So anyway, that's just sort of a brief history on us, bonded by the love of travel. And John and I were talking. We talk about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And this one might be a shorter session. Obviously, I want to talk about you and what you do, but we bond. We talk about movies, we talk about music a lot, but sometimes we talk about political stuff.
Yep.
And currently, there's a big hoopla going on about the Michael Jackson leaving Neverland doc. And of course, I come to London, and John's got opinions about it. I just watched most of it, and I have opinions. I mean, I had opinions on it before I watched it.
Yeah.
Not so sure my opinions have changed or not. They do make you go on an emotional roller coaster. They make you question your feelings. But what we got to ask ourselves is, John, like himself was saying to me earlier, motives, right?
Yeah.
I want you to talk for a second now.
Yeah.
Give us your opinion. You haven't watched the documentary yet.
No. Yeah, that's important to state that I haven't yet seen the documentary. I'm actually going to see it. I've got it ready at home to watch later on.
But you know what you're into. It's going to be accusational. You know it's going to be biased. Yeah. It's one dimensional. It's one sided rather.
Yeah, absolutely. My view of it is I'm pretty sure what it's going to be like is going to be, it's going to be very one sided. Of course, it's not. I don't think it's going to take in the defense side of it. I don't think it's going to take the Jackson Estates side of it much. So it's really going to focus on, it's going to be accusations and corroborating evidence from families and these two people. That's what I know about it. My very recent research, since this is this whole story is kind of exploded all over social networks. It's being talked about everywhere, here around Europe, and I assume in the US, I'm sure it is. And yeah, that's so I've done a lot of research, actually, and I'm saving the documentary to get this side because I need to hear these guys out. I've seen a few interviews from them, but my research has been all in people that have the previous court case, the FBI investigation, the civil suit, the settlement, the criminal case, which of course there was no conviction anywhere. There was a settlement, and what friends and family and also certain stars who are certainly have been coming out with accusations of their own about sexual impropriety, like
Corey Feldman,
being the prominent one. And so, and these are guys that are, I think Corey Feldman gave a statement yesterday, or more sort of or maybe it was just a Twitter post. And it's he's questioning things. So, and of course, all the brothers, Jackson, the late Jackson's brothers, are all, of course, they defend him vehemently, and it's understandable. So I'm sure, of course, they're going to be very one-sided. But
that's not the Michael we.
There's a lot of defenses that should be taken seriously, should be taken into account before people make up their minds. Because I see a lot of people, and I would say maybe more of the liberal persuasion, seem to really have made up their mind, and we're calling people guilty. So I don't know. It's an appeal to looking at all. Sort of take an unemotional look at it too.
So the biggest thing that maybe kind of helps the defense is the fact that, the FBI, they did their lengthy investigations. They didn't find anything back in the day besides, from my recollection, some nudie boy art books, right? But it was a gray area, right? It was naked children depicted, but it was quote unquote an art book. So it kind of straddled this weird line of yes, pornography and art and what they did, but they didn't get them on anything other than that. But as a friend of mine had once said, basically, that's John, where there's smoke, there's fire. So you kind of you think about things like this. Yeah. And I watched this documentary, and it is different when you hear somebody's accounts. And if these guys are making it up, they did their homework on what abusers do and things like that. And I'm not saying they're not capable of that. Obviously, this is a documentary. There's a lot of money at stake. At first, when I heard about this doc, I was talking to you, and I was like, well, I think it might have been reversed. I think I was a little bit more skeptical, and you were like, and I was like, I want to know who's making money out of this. Yeah. And I think you had mentioned at first, before we had done more research, that, they're not making any money. I'm like, well, then that definitely helps their case.
Yeah,
but
certainly would.
But they might be, but they're making money somewhere, right?
But I was very wrong about that. And what's happening with that is I was completely wrong. I heard somewhere in an interview or somewhere, I picked up something saying that, these guys are not making any money off it. They're just telling their story. They're not going to make money. Maybe the people that made, the director and the producers, are going to make some money back, obviously, from what they've spent on making the film. But I found out that, of course, these guys are suing the Jackson estate, and there might be more than one civil case being brought, but this is for hundreds of millions of dollars. I can't, off the top of my head, the exact figure that they're suing for is, and I know also the Jackson estate is also, conversely, they're suing HBO because they say that they're sliding. They apparently have a contract, sort of a still existing contract with MJ or his estate that started in 1992. So they're citing conflict of interest. They should be. So that's going on. But yeah, these two young men are certainly poised to, if they win their suit,
to gain a
hell of a lot, hundreds of millions. So that changes everything, doesn't it?
Before we had that information, my question was, well, the guy's dead. Right. He can't be brought to justice. No one can be tried guilty or innocent. So what is the point of all this? And you had made the counter argument that, well, I mean, if you had been molested, wouldn't it be enough for you to just bring down this guy's reputation? When we're thinking there's no money involved. And I'm like, you make a lot of sense. I guess if I would, it would be just grating it would be a constant reminder of abuse that you went through when it was the king of pop, and he's constantly referenced everywhere all the time. You can't escape it. It's not like you get raped in your hometown and you move and you start a new life. You've got your own issues and your own uphill battle even then, but no therapy is going to be able to, you can't go to there's Michael impersonators everywhere. His music's all over the radio. You can't go into any shop without seeing a Michael album. It's just whatever. So it made sense to me. Like, all right, well, they just kind of want to tarnish the legacy because you know what? We've already learned with people like R. Kelly and all this stuff. When you fall to something like this, they scrub you from Spotify. The record stores don't carry your albums anymore. They literally make you disappear. Radio stations are going to boycott you and not play your music. It can be effective in this day and age. It's shown. But
it certainly can, and we're seeing, of course, that has already begun. It's been all the talk on TV shows over here in London, in the UK, because the debate is, and there's people on both sides of this debate. There's DJs, radio DJs that are refusing to not play. They're refusing to. They're choosing to still play his music. They refuse to like pull him off their shows.
What's your opinion with that? So the guy he can't be tried innocent or guilty. So you would have a little bit more sympathy, maybe. If the two people accusing him weren't singing a tune for the last 20 odd years or whatever, right? Because isn't that a thing too? Haven't they pretty much claimed otherwise like this whole time?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing hurting their side, right? Is that you could say this about everything we have. Anytime we have accusational stuff like this thrown around, why didn't you come forward sooner? But the thing is they were probably because obviously Michael Jackson, highly publicized. He's been through this a few times, right? Yeah. And they would have gone to them, and they did, and they were singing different tunes back then. They sounded more akin to Corey Feldman or Macaulay Culkin, who still to this day say, "Hey, nothing happened."
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely fine to ask that question. There's some people that sort of are against that being a valid question. I think people should be questioned. I think it's a valid question as to why people didn't come forward sooner. But I understand, of course, on the other side these situations are extremely complex. They're difficult. We're talking about young children. We're talking about kids that have conflicting interests. When you idolize, you look up to somebody. The whole world looks up to somebody. You idolize them. You probably, I think the word you said it from the documentary that they said that we love this guy. We looked up to him. He was like a father figure. He was a lover. It's quite a
more
serious
like
thing.
Older brother is the way they describe it.
But these boys were so keen to defend him that they literally in these court cases, they literally their testimony. One of the boys' testimony was kind of the strongest bit of evidence of the whole case that got MJ exonerated in the criminal case. So, and if you're asking me the question of do I think like his music should be played? Do I think his name should be scrubbed off things? On that note, I definitely disagree with that. I think we can separate art from the art, the art from the artist. I think it's a slippery slope when you start going down that road and
people say
finding out people's foibles and flaws. And I know that there's flaws and there's flaws. These are serious things, but I think that it's a slippery slope when you start just writing people out because of mistakes. Because we all have skeletons in our closet. We all make mistakes.
Sure, but don't be separating the art from the artist. People like to say that all the time, of course. And I'm one of those guys too. Like when we're talking about things like, oh man, does Axl Rose seem like a total jerk? He seems like a jerk, but I'm not going to be his friend in real life. I just like the tunes, right? Yeah. But doesn't it seem like a lot of people draw the line at pedophilia, right? And it's funny, people draw the line at pedophilia, not murder, because there's a lot of people in entertainment that have murdered people and gone down, and people still watch those movies they were a part of or listen to records. And I mean,
Or
but
there's
when
or there's even people that love a film, and that the director went to court because animals were tortured. And that's something I'm against. Someone who loves animals.
Cannibal Holocaust has a big
Absolutely.
underground following, and that guy legit got into legal trouble over the real slaughtering of animals in that movie.
Absolutely, that's the example I had in mind.
Roman Polanski gets standing ovations at the Oscars 25 years after fleeing the country from people that attack him,
literally running away from, which if that's not an admission of guilt, what is? So
it was you buy it. I mean, Hollywood parties back in those days.
But people, as you said, people are standing up and they're applauding him, and they're celebrating his work. And, I like a lot of his films, I've looked into that case quite a bit. If you ask me what I believe, I really believe that, I certainly believe he's guilty. I think it's almost not up for debate with Polanski.
No.
I think it's pretty much it's not like up for debate.
100%. And I don't know what Jack Nicholson ever said on that, because it was at his party.
It was at his house.
It was
at his house when
it went down.
Happened. And of course, I mean,
and back in the day, it's like,
he's not going to, did he see stuff like that happening? That says, it's hard to believe that a lot of people in these situations, just like in the way with MJ, bringing it back to MJ, that there must have been a lot more people in the know. And Oprah brought this up when she interviewed them. There would have been a lot more people. You had like security guards, bodyguards, secretaries, managers, people. And also, and when a lot of these things have happened in Hollywood, there have been a lot of famous people that turned a blind eye, that knew about things. This is go back to Harvey Weinstein, the same thing. There's a lot of people that knew about Harvey Weinstein's behavior. Yeah. A lot of people knew.
It's a huge underbelly to the whole thing and the whole industry and the scene. Yeah. So with Michael Jackson, though, if you watch this documentary, it's interesting because they give such descriptive details, which I admit you could be coerced and you could cook that up and you could really do your research, but the details are just harrowing. They're hard to listen to because they're, like I said, they did some homework, or they really, really put the work into it, because it's really descriptive. It's really disgusting. And these two guys, obviously they had a relationship beforehand, so they could have easily corroborated stories. And, but the details are disgusting. I can see how anybody listening to this is going to really instantly fall in favor of the victims, but it's so weird listening to them because it's not like a Roman Polanski thing, because the victim of the Roman Polanski thing, she never went after him hardcore, and she's even just kind of like nonchalant about it now, but she's saying it happened, but she's not trying to make a whole bunch of money.
Kind of similar in the Woody Allen thing. Well, actually, no, sorry. The Woody Allen thing, of course, involves his daughter, doesn't it? But then there was the girl that's just sort of a very young girl, underage girl that he eventually married, didn't he?
Woody
was like
Allen.
An adopted Vietnamese or Korean, South Korean.
The one that he married, Soo Yin or whatever her name is. Yeah.
I think she's Korean. Sorry, forgive me for don't remember exactly now if she was. Yeah, anyway.
That's a thing of grooming, right? Yeah, grooming her over time and then marrying her and ditching her mom. That was like a grooming thing.
Yeah, which brings up questionable things about his tastes, what he likes, and of course, if it's true, if the accusations of his wife, of Mia Farrow, are true, and they're that's pretty severe, of course, if true, because this is involving like a very small child.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing is Soo Yin's an adult now and they're still married. Yeah, and I don't know if it was ever even acknowledged, or was it a thing that he did things with her when she was underage, or was he just grooming her and when she became of age married? Because he might have just danced on a line there. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's morally wrong to groom, but is it illegal to groom until the age of, because dude, how many people do that? How many people did you know growing up in college or high school that were
we're waiting till she turns 18. I'm waiting till she,
and then we're kind of like doing the flirting.
And you just wonder like, oh, you're going out with, but you're underage. And they say, well, you're just, you'll all hear that you're waiting. Oh, when she turns 18, but then it's hard to believe that they're not.
There's a gray area there.
Intimate before that time.
When you hear these guys talk on this documentary, the thing that gets me the most is it's not like a Bill Cosby thing where they're angry. Some of them are the memories are coming back to them and they're crying. They're testifying. Yeah. These guys, I don't know if it's Stockholm syndrome. I don't know if it's really good coaching. I don't know if it's coping and they're over it. I don't know what it is, but they're so nonchalant about these stories. And they're even talking as if they think they're remembering fondly of him, and they're still kind of talking as if that's the way they still do. Like, we loved him.
That's what's most interesting about from what you told me when we were talking earlier. You told me that aspect of it, that they're kind of fondly, the memories they're pretty fond of him still. And
it's hard to read those guys. It really is, because it makes you wonder. Okay, you're acknowledging you were taken advantage of and sexually molested, but you're still kind of reminiscing, telling us these stories as if they were good times.
Yep.
And not anywhere are you showing to me that you're scarred by it or whatever, and you're crying. No, it's just, it seems like it is what it is. We loved him, and so there's a million times when I was watching, I was like, okay, this is all very disgusting, all the things you're detailing. But you keep saying at the time, you didn't know any better, so you didn't mind, but you didn't know any better because you were being groomed and manipulated. Great. But even now, it's like your tone doesn't sound too much different to me. Why are you making this documentary, and why are you going after, what's your motive here? Because it just doesn't, they don't seem to want restitution to me. They don't seem angry. I had heard, because these two boys, the first one's American. It's the one that starred in that Pepsi commercial with Michael back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, the one where he's going to the dressing room and he finds Michael's hat and glasses and he's putting it on, like trying out for the mirror.
I remember. I've seen that recently.
And Michael catches him in the act. It's a good commercial.
Yeah.
He's the American guy.
Yeah.
And the other one was a young kid from Australia, Brisbane, that won a competition, a local competition, a dancing competition. And the winner gets to go to the concert when he was coming to play Brisbane and meet Michael. He won the competition. He met Michael.
Feels real groom-like.
Yeah,
it's just very suspect, isn't it? Young boys winning competitions to hang out with Michael. It's just. It's so dodgy. It's so weird. That's like the beginning. That's where the grooming starts, It
is weird.
Send young boys over. And it doesn't look good.
So he goes to Brisbane. He meets this kid, and he's impressed with his little dance moves or whatever. And he says, "Oh, I wish." He's like, "Were you at the show?" And he says, "Well, had I known you were at the show, I would have actually brought you on stage to dance." And of course, the mom chimes in, "Well, we got tickets for tomorrow night too." So he brings him on stage. And that was that, right? And
so this kid was a dancer. He could dance.
He was 5. He was 5. Yeah, okay. He was a 5-year-old. Okay. Anyway, so that was it. The concert went well, and he built a good rapport with Michael then. But Michael went about his day, and he said, "Oh yeah, if you're ever in LA, give me a call." As if it's that easy to get a hold of Michael Jackson.
This kid was 5 years old.
5. So anyway.
God, that's so
they
young.
did end up visiting LA, and literally 2 years later. And during that 2 years back in Brisbane, he was on the dance circuit. He was getting little odd jobs here and there off the heels of that first job, and as Michael impersonators and doing mall circuits and stuff like that. But when he did go to visit LA, he literally did. He's like, well, Michael said we can call him, and they said it wasn't an easy task. We had to go through a whole bunch of people, channels, and finally somebody, gave like his assistant's a call or something. They finally got a line to him, and Michael Jackson remembered him, and he met with him. He was recording Bad, and he invited him and his family to come to the studio, and it just sparked from, that's what really began. And after that meeting, he was now 7. Michael Jackson seemed like he liked 7-year-olds, like maybe 5 was too young, because even this dance competition he won, 5 was too young. It was for 7 to 8.
Okay.
And they even told him, they said, look, you're really good. It's like you're too young to compete, but you can perform. We don't mind. You're really good, but to actually win, you're too young.
Okay.
But they still gave it to him anyway. You're that good, and they gave it to him. But whatever. 2 years later, he's in California, hits it off one day, and he's in Neverland. Like literally that week, he's like, "You want you guys come up and spend the weekend here in Neverland?" And it was a big deal. Anyway, Michael Jackson. Everything about him is traditional. We can't prove the stories they're saying, which are harrowing and disgusting. They're just disgusting and vile. We can't prove that happened, right? We're just going off hearsay. But if you watch the documentary, and I was telling you this, John, before we recorded, what is there is the substantial evidence that they had a really, really, really unconventional relationship with him, right? Because there's plenty of home.
So that's beyond any doubt.
There's
that they had a very, very unusual.
Where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Very unusual.
So
an abnormal, strange relationship.
There's a ton of really interesting home video footage that was just, you can tell was just for their camp only. Audio footage, audio stuff, all this stuff that's like people never heard before. I'm like, wow. So that part
interesting
is evident. Like they had a really, really, really the relationship vaguely was there. The weird because
beyond being sort of buddy, kind of just like friends.
The air quote relationship that they talk about. It seems legit. That's backed up by footage. So Michael Jackson, he integrated himself in these families and the moms, because the moms are in on it too. Is this their corroborating evidence and their support because the moms are in on it as well? Because you got both the kids' moms in this documentary defending it and going after him as well. And of course, they're saying, back then you were just drinking the Kool-Aid and, you don't think anything's wrong. And we just thought
what were these moms thinking?
They were fucking starfucker moms, maybe entertainment moms. These
are the moms that let their boys sleep in bed with a grown man.
Well, because basically. They all got bought off.
They were progressively moved further and further away in hotels.
They all got bought off in some way. But in the case of these two, they were industry moms, right? They wanted their kids to get ahead in the industry, and Michael was going to further their careers. He said, like, I'll take you under my wing. I'll be your protege, and. Come on, they had something to gain, right? And he's the biggest pop star in the world. Not even pop. He's the biggest star in the world, period.
If a kid's a dancer, like being one kid was the Australian kid was a dancer. I mean, that's like the pinnacle,
Yeah.
Grown-ups later. I mean, I watched before his death, there was these auditions, and this was like the chance of a lifetime for older dancers to just to be able to dance with him on his last tour, which never happened.
Yeah.
So it was like a huge deal. So I can understand in one way how, he's such a big star. He was the world's biggest star at the time. So of course, if I was a parent, I wouldn't let my kid get close with a grown man. No, that I would not do. But I can see like letting him meet them. I'd be interested to meet him as well. And it could bring a certain level of fame and success to your kid.
But he did, assuming he's guilty, he did what all traditional pedophiles do, victimizers do. They groom and they take the time. Now, Michael Jackson was not an ordinary person, though. He was also the king of fucking pop, right? So, I mean, I could see how any parent maybe could be blinded a little bit, star blind a little bit. Like, oh, well, he's the king of pop. He's not going to be in anything bad. He's not going to be a murderer or pedophile or anything like that. He's got everything, it probably is the last person you think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's the king of pop. Of course you can hang out with my son.
And also what's not up for debate is that, whether you were someone, you're on the camp of accusing him now or defending him, everyone agrees. And I'm sure this documentary will show the same because I've never heard any different. Everyone agrees how, other than these accusations, which are serious, is how in every other way, Michael Jackson was a really lovely guy. He was a sweet, very caring, to everybody, so there's certainly, you could be wooed in by how nice he was. Cause he was a kind person. He was friendly. He was easygoing.
As we said,
everyone, people talk very highly of him. Other than these accusations,
the people that wouldn't know he had a dark side if he did have a dark side, cause
everything that happened behind closed doors, so there's only very few people that are going to be in the know of what happened in those situations. And it's not looking good for.
If he was guilty, he clearly had an advantage over run-of-the-mill garden variety pedophiles, right? That have to really put in that work to groom. He was the king of pop, so he had an easy in, right? So he was able to integrate himself into these families. So one of the mothers said, oh, because they had moved out to LA. It's like, oh, Michael was great. He was best friends, and he would come over for sleepovers like he was 7 years old too. He'd come over for sleepovers. They'd eat desserts and watch movies all night in their little room or whatever. Yeah. I would bring them dinner. I would wash Michael's clothes like with my son, and I'd get them in their pajamas. It was fucking weird. So, like I said, if that wasn't the king of pop and it was just you, John Milan or whatever, I'm here to hang out with your son and have sleepovers. Shotgun, you would hear that cocked a mile away, right? But king of pop, and she's like, well, he's like, I started to see him as my son. Like he was just one of my sons. Like you get blind. They got blinded. Yeah,
that's an interesting point. Parents, the mothers and parents of a lot of these kids, because there's a lot of them. There's also girls as well. It was mostly boys, little boys.
Was there girls? I've never.
There were actually a few. There were actually a few that would be invited to these. They were essentially sleepovers.
They slept in a different room. They sleep in the bed.
Off the top of my head, that's one detail I don't know, but I know that maybe at some point. But the fact is that the majority of them were little boys.
You know, from behind, you little pre-adolescent girls look the same as boys. Just stay facing the other way.
That's so wrong.
You know what I mean? He's a fucked up guy. Well, he put in the work too because he said the mom was like, you know, he would call me on the phone a lot. He would call. Dude, this creeped me out. He's like, because he had to be on the road, he'd be touring, and he would call from the road. Like, I don't remember their names, right? But let's just say it's Jimmy. Hi, can I speak to Jimmy? He would stay on the phone with Jimmy for hours, like a couple of little kids. Isn't that weird? He would stay on the phone. He'd call from the road, and a grown man on like the bad tour of all things. And that's what he was doing. You know, you go see Michael Jackson at a huge stadium and he goes off stage. You wonder what it's like for a rock star. He's in his bedroom calling a little boy and talking to him for hours and hours. And he said he would talk to me too. Some days.
So of course the background story to sort of try to explain some of those behaviors from his family is that, of course, you know, he didn't have any sort of childhood in the normal sense. So
old news, but
you know, of course, it's very old news. So this is what's constantly parroted, that he didn't have much of a childhood. He never really had a chance to do a lot of normal things that a lot of kids do.
Yeah,
so,
I get that.
Hence, you know, so Neverland and you know, being able to play and you know, catch up with things that he didn't get to do, have friends. It's like a way, but
dude, it's like the Playboy Mansion is to grown men. That's what Neverland is to alluring boys and little kids, right? So my thing is though, he would take the time. The mother was like, he would sometimes call though and just want to talk to me. And he would talk to me for hours and just call in and check in. And, you know, he really gained.
Kind of like he was grooming everybody.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But even like the grooming didn't just extend to the kids because these kids don't come as a solo package.
He was a
They've
pro.
Got fathers, mothers.
John, he was a pro. You know, he knows this. He was a pro. So, but the thing is
somebody put it in one way of time, just to say one thing. They put it in an interesting way. They said in one of these newspaper articles was that, you know, Michael Jackson kind of, if these things are true, you know, he successfully groomed everybody. He groomed the world, like not just the kids, not just the mothers, but everyone, the media, his fans, the world, really.
But, you know, if this was a competition, he had an unfair advantage. No, not everybody's the king of pop, right? Yeah. He took, you talk about people in power taking advantage of position, that if he's guilty, he is the greatest guilty party of that. Seriously. So he would, and the mother, they even kind of say the same thing. The way the mothers are talking about this stuff, it's almost like, gosh, it's almost like an adoration of the past. It's the way, like he would call, she's not saying he would call me and talk to me hours. See, he was grooming the fuck out of me. No, that's not the way they're approaching it. And the mother's telling the story like, you know, and he would call and sometimes he would just
want to talk to my son. He wanted to talk. Yeah.
He wanted to talk to me. And, you know, and this is where it like comes off as sympathizing. And you know what? I think that's how he got to know people because he was so sheltered. He wanted to talk on the phone and really just have conversation. Like, are you defending this guy or what are we doing? Are we accusing him? Or it comes off really weird to me. I
find that aspect really strange because my you know, and I haven't seen it yet, of course, to reiterate, but I find that aspect really strange that
you think they would be gunning for it. Like, no, look, this is my stance.
This would be like, you know, like, yeah, this like it would be fairly angry.
Like he was
like
grooming
quite
me.
Angry, like, you know, he was grooming me and like in a serious way. But it seems to be almost like it's mostly fun from the way you're describing it. It's still quite like they're speaking of him in a very fond way. There doesn't seem to be much anger. There doesn't seem to be much like condemnation. It's more like, I know they're just telling the story, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of condemnation.
I'm looking forward to you watching it because maybe it's just me, but there's zero hostility or anger, any of that stuff in this. It really isn't. Like if this really happened.
And we should say, of course, that you've seen I think it's 4 hours altogether. I think you've seen one half. You've seen the first half.
I've seen the first half.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I've seen enough. I want to watch the second half, but it's just going to be 2 more hours of the same thing, of telling disgusting stories with vivid detail that are just harrowing
and explicit stuff. Huh?
Very explicit stuff. I mean,
which obviously we're not going to mention here, but
you guys can watch the
listeners can get an idea of what
it blew me away. There's no warm up for it. You know, you know that this documentary is coming out, and it's going to be exploitive in nature a little bit.
Yeah.
But they just come out swinging, and they do not hold in. You can tell this thing was picked up at HBO and it's not on network TV.
Yeah.
I'm watching it here in the UK where it's being broadcast on Channel 4, which is network TV here, right? But the stuff they say, they have little warnings at the
There's
start.
apparently a US version and there's a UK version. I don't know what's changed in both versions.
Well, the
maybe
US,
there's different censor laws.
the US version's HBO, right?
Okay.
So maybe the uncensored ones in the US, because this is on network TV
so
here.
HBO is just
They could say whatever they want.
they can say whatever
I
they
could
want.
see it being more censored here on network
there's
TV.
less regulation on
Probably.
Yeah.
But they come out swinging, and the stuff they say is just like, all right, well, this is what this is going to be. It's going to be 4 hours of disgusting, detailed pedo stuff. I mean, it's disgusting.
And an interesting thing for your listeners, because your listeners are mostly are American, and we have a big case. I don't know how much Americans know about Jimmy Savile. Well, so I'll fill you in a little bit, but I mean, this is a serious. I mean, and he doesn't compare to Michael Jackson. This guy, this is very serious, and this is a comedian and a talk show host who worked for the BBC for many, many, many years. And after he died, again, it was only after he died that a lot of this stuff came out, and we had documentarians who were pulled in by him. He was a very charming character. He was. He had a lot of charisma. He had a lot of presence. He was a huge star. He was so famous. So in that way, similar to MJ, but the things he's pretty much been proved and accused of, but also proven, they're not for debate, are very serious. And we're talking about extreme abuse. He used to go into children's hospitals, mental hospitals for children. He used to go into morgues with dead bodies and stuff. But pedophile. So, and he abused and harassed groupies that used to get at that time, back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, you had like 14, 15-year-old girls were allowed by their parents. They'd come over, they were mingling with stars. A lot of improper stuff happened. But beyond that, he used to go into children's hospitals and rape kids. Very, very serious thing. But while he was alive, he managed to get away with everything, every single thing. And it's only when he died, it was completely exposed. And so many people felt so guilty because they'd been charmed by him. They'd been lulled into they'd been sort of...
what was his claim to fame? What was his name again?
Jimmy Savile. So, anybody you can pull him up, read about it online. Jimmy Savile. So Jimmy and Savile spelled Savile.
What was his claim to fame? What was
his claim to fame? Was a TV personality, a huge star. He had a show called Jim'll Fix It, which was like a massive TV program here.
I know
for
this
kids.
guy. I know this guy.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked you
He
again.
looks really creepy, but in hindsight, nobody was really thinking that at the time. Anyway, there were always stories circulating around him. The same way with MJ, there have been gossip and rumors and stories and accusations for a long time. But Jimmy Savile was able to get away with it for such a long time. And it's amazing how, so just to bring it back to our discussion, it's amazing how these things can go. These stars wield so much power, apparently. I guess maybe just financial power might be the biggest thing, or just their fame. And they're able to kind of squash things. They're able to settle things. They're able to get away with, in Jimmy Savile's case, the most atrocious. Like if you were disgusted by what you saw in the MJ doc, I mean, wait till you hear about.
It's
harrowing, man.
I went down the rabbit hole of him. Actually, I just
these
couldn't
are all
remember
grown women now telling the stories,
Yeah.
and it's horrendous. It's horrendous.
So with Michael Jackson, the thing that's always helped him out, assuming, like I said, that he's guilty, let's just assume, is that it's easy for him to play the sympathy card. It's easy to feel bad for Michael Jackson. Like, he's getting a raw deal. He just had it rough. He's lived in the limelight, didn't have a childhood.
Yeah.
Now, on one hand, you could say, well, that's just the biggest facade cover up to lure children ever. This whole Neverland, Peter Pan, I never want to grow up. Or if you're to ask me, and I'm not Dr. Phil, I'm not a doctor or anything, I think it can be everything. I think he is fucked in the head. He was fucked in the head, and he didn't, have the childhood. He was warped. He had a negative impact. And I think you might ask, well, a biggest thing for the offense is, well, you have these celebrities like Macaulay Culkin and you have Corey Feldman that they attest nothing ever happened. And I think he could have had both. I think he could have had kids he just befriended, because I think he is that fucked up little kid inside that didn't have that friendship. But I also think that if he didn't like little boys, he was asexual, right? He's got to stick his dick in something, I guess, right? I mean, he's fucking weird, but I think he can have it all. I don't think Macaulay not saying anything or whatever doesn't make him innocent.
Because we know, and I don't know how much up for debate this is. I don't know how certified this is, but obviously, according to his doctor anyway, and I mean, the evidence is there, and MJ's voice, and is that he was chemically castrated. So assuming that's true, of course, that would have a significant effect on a lot of things. But we know that obviously everyone's your personality, your psyche is a huge thing, is your sexuality. And of course, that's such a big deal for your development, when you're growing up through puberty and so on. And MJ's sexuality might have been, other than, like you said, like you truly believe he had that innocent, that childlike side, that missed childhood that, that he was wishing to have, to experience, that he felt really affected. It would have really affected him. We know that his sexuality based on would have been extremely messed up based on the castration, based on the medical side of things. So my view of it is that I think MJ probably thought that, he wouldn't be able to have sexual relationships or even romantic relationships with women. We know that he dated, who's the star?
Brooke Shields.
We know Brooke Shields. When you said they were both 16, or
they were both kids, and she might have been a little younger. But look, that doesn't exonerate anything.
And there was someone else. Did he not have one more relationship? Was it just Brooke Shields?
Tatum O'Neal, Bad News Bears.
I don't know who that
Tatum
is.
O'Neal.
I don't know who that
Another
is.
child star back in the day.
Female child star. Tatum O'Neal. Okay.
But look, this doesn't.
So he dated. We know about at least 2 relationships with females.
But we also know when he was older, he was artificially inseminated a woman.
Yeah, and we know that Brooke Shields, for instance, I don't know about Tatum O'Neal, but Brooke Shields has come out, as you said, and said, we didn't have sex. Of course, we didn't sleep together. We didn't have sexual relations. So I think it's pretty safe to say that MJ was either incapable of, or was not interested, or whatever one it is, was not capable or interested, or wasn't, definitely at least not having sexual relations with women, with grown women. So, but an individual still has sexuality. It's still a big part of everyone's well-being.
There are people that are asexual, I think.
That's true. It's true. That's fair. That's a fair point. Did he have those instincts? If it's true that he was a pedophile, and the evidence is huge. Did he have those instincts, or was this just something that he got into later based on like feeling like I won't be able, these are the only romantic and intimate relations that I could have? That's horrific.
Look, everybody develops.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility, though, is what I'm saying.
And people are always learning about themselves. Look, I don't think maybe him dating Brooke Shields and these Tatum O'Neals and these types was genuine enough, but that doesn't exonerate any of the stuff that he maybe or did not do later.
Are there any assertions of him being homosexual, other than obviously with little boys, but like with grown men? But did he have male relations?
No. He had not. That's why if
he did, no one knows about it, but I doubt it.
That would have came out by now.
That would have come out by now.
Look, if it wasn't for the child thing, he would just be asexual to me. Like he's the most asexual person ever. He doesn't even sound convincing when he's singing about women in his songs, right? No. None of it. And the chemistry of the dancers and none of it sounds so fake. And his videos and stuff where he was like talking about, come on girl, and oh, she banging. Like it never came off jangle. Like that, the Rock My World video with him and Chris Tucker. Yeah. Like, oh, she is fine. She is banging. He felt so fucking convincing, try hard. Like, dude, you are trying hard. You're lucky you're Michael Jackson.
It's not convincing.
Dude, Michael Jackson got such a pass. What other Motown black artist could even get away with the skin thing and everything else? Dude, he got such free pass on everything because he was Michael. But the whole him dating Brooke Shields or Tatum O'Neal, it does not exonerate anything for me because, look, there's plenty of guys that eventually come to terms with their sexuality or become gay or whatever. They try to have something that's conventional. They try and date, they try and fit in, and it doesn't work. So that was probably his experimental, hey, I want to try and fit in, but it ain't just working phase. Yeah. And then, you know what, on that note, here's my big thing about the Macaulay, the Feldman thing, because this is one of the biggest arguments, right? Which now Feldman, he's always been on the hard defense, but now he's saying, look, now we're in the era of Me Too. So Feldman's now saying, look, all I can say is nothing. I'm going to do my Feldman impression. All I can say is nothing happened to me, but I don't want to sit there and take away from the victims, So, but he's kind of leaving it up to some. That's a lot of give for him, right? Macaulay Culkin, I'm sure he's been.
That's quite significant considering, he's one of the most vocal people that have come out speaking against the issue of pedophilia in Hollywood, right? He's made some serious accusations of a lot of people.
You think he wouldn't hold back on him, but so that's why I genuinely.
It's pretty incredible.
I genuinely believe him. But the thing is okay, why people like to say in the argument, why would Michael Jackson not do anything? Look, I think he could have been a smart pedophile and not done it to the famous people, but I think he legit could have held friendships.
Yeah.
Right. So he probably was a little bit of everything. I don't think it was just a complete mask and a facade just to lure in children. I think it was all the above. It was all the things that everybody knows pretty much as fact about Michael Jackson mixed with this taboo aspect people are debating. I think all of it was true. So I think it's true that he could have met Macaulay Culkin. He could have met Webster. He could have met Emmanuel Lewis Webster. He could have met Corey Feldman. And he actually had a bond with them because they were dealing with the same thing he did, child stardom, right? Mm-hmm. Those might have actually been his legit friends because he still in his head was a fucked up little boy. The chemical castration thing, I mean, we all know that made his 9-year-old boy chest never develop, but I don't know if it did anything to his sexuality because in the people were describing in this, man, like he could jack off like a fucking champ apparently and produce, because he was developed in that sense.
Yeah. And interesting with Corey Feldman, he's come out like he was initially when this documentary came out, I think before he saw it, he was kind of defending, and
maybe he watched it and he's like, hey.
He was critical, which is significant because this is someone who's been the most vocal and brave and coming out and speaking out his own abuse and abuses that were going on in Hollywood, systemic.
He had to backpedal. He had to go back and
but he says one of his quotes says, "I don't want to be perceived as I'm here to defend Michael Jackson because I can no longer do that." He says that when he watched the documentary and saw it, he said like he was far more convinced, and he said like, so I can no longer defend him because even though nothing inappropriate and all I had was admiration, he was like a big brother to me. It was a great friendship, and he was like a brother to me, and it was always absolutely perfectly normal, and none of this happened to him whatsoever. So, but in spite of that, he's really throwing his weight now behind these two guys.
Let's level it for a second. So, I genuinely think he could have just had bonding friendships with people like Macaulay and Feldman, because case in point, you could take a regular serial rapist, Ted Bundy. He didn't rape every woman he knew, right? He had good relations with his girlfriend. He had good relations here and there, and he didn't rape everyone he knew. But they're not gonna. Even pedophiles, even like your standard pedophile, he's not gonna rape every kid he knows. You know what I mean? So to think that Michael Jackson would fuck every kid would just be unreasonable. It doesn't mean he didn't fuck some and didn't fuck around with some others.
Yeah, but you could say, if you were playing devil's advocate, or you could say if you were in his defense, you could say that the fact that Corey Feldman, somebody who is very vocal on these subjects, and Culkin, that if two such famous stars who were very young at the time, who were like in his inner circle, the fact that they saw nothing, not even so much as one inappropriate gesture towards them, that they're clear on that, and they would have no reason to defend him.
But there's a lot
legally or otherwise, especially Corey. But nothing. So I would say that's just something that bothers me about the whole thing. I'm like, if all the people, if those two who had been abused themselves, had cases of abuse in Hollywood themselves, that over all the years, and they slept in his bed, they were at Neverland, all the same things. They never so much as saw anything, not even like he did put his hand on my thigh once. I did see him getting aroused when I was in the same, or whatever. Nothing. There was absolutely nothing. So it is something that does make you think. Like,
let me ask you a question.
Does make you question.
Let me ask you a question.
And it should look at both sides look at everything.
In your world of sexuality, in your whole world, okay, great. There's women you would find attractive that you would hypothetically take into a bed to do sexual acts with, right? Okay.
Of course.
But are there any women in your life, even as friends, that you could, cuddle up with, but not, it could be platonic and not, it cannot be sexual, and you don't have to.
Not many.
But you don't think it could happen? You don't think you can have a close friend that you could comfort, hug, and
of course.
And just be, maybe even like cuddle up on a couch or whatever.
You're just not attracted to them, and they're not. And most importantly, that they're not attracted to you whatsoever. In fact, if you just say, I really like you as a friend, John, but I'm just really not into you in that way.
I'm just saying,
even if I did find them physically and sexually attractive, I wouldn't be interested.
He might not have been that unable to. We act like all pedophiles just can't contain themselves at all. But
so you're sort of bringing it down, like sort of to the child level, but like just in a grown-up world.
Look,
there's some people that turn you on, and some people that
grown-ups. Okay,
do it for you.
Heterosexual couples. Look, a guy and a girl. A guy likes females, right? A grown-up females, but he can control himself. He's not like out in the streets raping them all and sexually harassing them all or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why can't it be the same thing? So, I mean, there's heterosexual males, there's homosexual males or whatever that are predators and that do abuse adults and rape people, whatever. Even then, they still aren't going to do it to all of them. But I don't know if a pedophile is any more or less animalistic than the average, person that's into regular stuff. So we act like he can't contain himself at all. Like, oh my God, like he's jonesing for some boy cock all the time. No, he's probably smart. Like maybe you see it as sort of like very calculated, very careful. Yeah, maybe it could be look, I just actually have a friendship with Macaulay Culkin because he's a child star like me going through the exact same thing. Just like I have girls that I'm just platonic friends with. Right. Or maybe it's a mix of him being very calculated and be like, look, I'm a sick freak, but I got to have some boundaries. I can't fuck Macaulay, the most famous kid in the world right now. Because think about it.
Take your point. Because he would, of course, he would know how risky, how controversial, how wrong it was. I hope he knew it was wrong.
Michael Jackson always had home field advantage, right? He was bringing in these kids that were from not as well-to-do families, right? Just regular people that had everything to gain from a friendship from like Michael. Yeah. He could woo them. He could groom them with paying off mortgages, with taking them on tour, with promising them career aspirations. Macaulay Culkin, okay, I imagine Macaulay Culkin had a lot of people on his entourage, right? He had agents, he had representation, he had people kind of watching him. But when you have these people from Brisbane, Australia, these randos, you're on Michael's playing field. He's got all the people, like you said, pulling the strings that had to have. Even not, maybe if it wasn't directly in the know, they indirectly had to have some inkling, right? Because the moms on the documentary, they would say things like, over time, my rooms would get farther and farther and farther away from where Michael was staying, and they would always say like, hey, can I get something closer? Oh, this is the closest we could get you. So even if Michael wasn't giving them details and it was never upfront or whatever, should they have been a little curious on why that was always the case? Shouldn't they have put that together, why these kids are getting further and further and further? And shouldn't they have known as well that they're clearly getting the orders to tell them that's as far as we can get them? But should they know that's not true?
I mean, yeah, come on. It's I think it's fair to say that they should be, they deserve a lot of criticism. I mean, what were they thinking?
So the Macaulay Culkin thing,
who lets their kids
it's a level playing field.
It's so inappropriate.
Think about it. Another thing I
understand that they were pulled into it. I understand that they were groomed into it as well.
Think about them. Well, like I said, you're not going to expect it. Just like you didn't expect Bill Cosby to rape you and drug you.
Well, it's an unusual situation to be in. We're talking about like one of the most famous people in the world.
1 in a billion.
You're just like you said, starry-eyed.
Befriending him and all his aspirations. Yeah. So
would you let your kid, would you let your young boy climb into bed? Would I let my young son climb into bed?
The case in point on to close out the Mac thing and the Macaulay Culkin thing and the Feldman thing. I think pedophiles usually in a traditional sense, like obviously Michael Jackson, that isn't anything but traditional. It's always somebody in power. It's a priest, it's a teacher, it's an authority figure that the kid is to trust. The kid is down here, you are up here, right? When you bring in the most famous kid at the world at the time, Macaulay Culkin, and the biggest pop star in the world, it's a little bit more of an even playing field, right? But you bring in just sort of the nobody off the street little boy with the family that has everything to gain. Okay, now we have that priest choir boy relationship again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's very possible that he just bonded with him and was legit friends with him, but he also was he was a little smarter, right? That one's going to get me in trouble, right? That's what I think.
I think when all is said and done, I mean, you can give your final sort of thoughts on it. But from, as I said to you before, where there's smoke, there's fire, and everything should be looked at. All the evidence should be looked at. In his defense, he did go through an extensive court case. He was investigated by the FBI. They found nothing. He did have, he did go through an extensive civil and criminal court case, which came up with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had a lot of people that were very close to him speak out in his defense. Now,
that really probably wouldn't have room to defend. You know what I mean? With something like this, because it's not like every serial killer under the sun. Ted Bundy's mother defended him. Like, my boy
even
didn't
after he'd been almost pretty guaranteed. Ted Bundy, he had like girlfriends come and like defend him.
Yeah,
like seriously defend him in
but these people,
in court.
These people, of course, the people that they would never let on that they were into kids like that, of course they're going to defend him, because that's not the Michael they know. He had, if he's guilty, he had everybody fooled. They describe like his makeup artist and everything else, talking to the kids and whatever, talking to the parents, like, oh, Michael, he's great. Like, because they would often be like, hey, Michael wants to see your kid in the trailer, and like, oh, he's like a 9-year-old kid, like they would all just pass off. He's just an innocent. So, because he was probably super charming, super nice, probably otherwise
super childlike, super sweet,
very charitable, very polite.
Yeah.
Because believe me, I've known people that have gone down for some bad pedophilia stuff. And that otherwise were very good people. Otherwise, you know what I mean? It's weird, but I think the last thing
we touched on that earlier. That's what I was saying earlier.
The one thing I want to hear from you before I close out is, before we knew there was money involved, the lawsuit against the estate. Remember, I asked, well, then what do they feel they'd have to gain? And, we came to the conclusion that, well, if this had happened to you, and assuming there's no money at stake, wouldn't bringing down this guy's empire be worth it to you, right? Exactly. Now that there's money at stake, do you think it's possible that it still happened, and they could be in the stance of, well, yes, this happened to me, it's true, and we want to take down his name, but you know what? We might as well get some money out of it too. Do you think it's possible to have that mentality, to be a victim and want to clean him out as well? He's dead. You're just clean. You're just taking it from his kid's pocket at this point, right? His children.
Well, here's my take on it, and I think if I was trying to put myself into their shoes as much as possible, I think. If true, and that had really happened over a period of time, and it's explicit stuff, if that had happened to me, not only I'd want the truth to come out for sure, but I'd also want some sort of restitution. I would want, and I don't think that should be seen initially anyway. I don't think it should be seen as wrong or immoral or greedy, because if I was abused by someone, and groomed and abused, and over a period of time in such an inappropriate and disgusting manner, I would want to get some restitution for it, because that's something that I'll never be able to have back. That innocence. If it's true, the innocence of these boys was completely stripped away from them and taken away from them without any control from them whatsoever. And they deserve to be restituted for that. I firmly believe that's something that, and that estate has made so much money off the image of Michael Jackson that's been portrayed over the world, of a benevolent, a philanthropist, change the world, heal the world, love, innocence, all these kind of things, and of course being such a talented musician. But his image, his pure image has made the Jackson estate and Michael Jackson and his family and their estate so much money. And if that had happened over a period of time, if my life had been, if my life had been affected so substantially like that, I would want to get something back for it. And I think they have every right to do that. Conversely, though, it does still bring into question, if you're questioning the honesty, because we know that can happen. We know that people can lie and fabricate where there's money. We've have evidence of that happening for many years when it comes to celebrities and the rich. People will try to extort you. There's always going to be someone. People do lie, people do cheat, and they do extort. And these two gentlemen should be up under the same scrutiny as anyone else. And I think that conversely, other than the points I've just made, I think the fact that they are standing to make a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, if their civil court, if they successfully sue the Jackson estate.
I'm going to lose.
I think that's got to be something that you've got to, as used as a criticism. It's got to be something that you take into account when you make up your mind on what you believe here.
Wouldn't you lose a lot of respect if they just settled, and they went away, like they were given hush money? Like, what? I thought you wanted to bring this guy down. Yeah. I mean, because so because there's a lot of things. Like I said, this is a one-sided documentary.
Yeah.
I'm hearing all sorts of things that I haven't done my own research on.
Can I just say one more thing? There's one more thing with the civil suit that where they're suing the Jackson estate. It's also worth mentioning that when you sue, there's always financial remuneration. There's financial restitution. If you bring a civil suit against someone, there's always going to be, when you sue, it's always going to be for you don't sue for free. You have expenses, but you never sue and don't get anything for it and say, well, the outcome is that the person is going to be judged to be guilty and that's the end of it. No, you get something back for the trouble you've been put through. So you can say like, oh, that it's suspicious of them that they could just be in this for money. But at the same time, if it was true and you were trying to have the truth come out and you do try to sue somebody, because I would sue somebody if they abused me. I would sue if they had a lot of money, their family, their estate. You always are going to get something. There's always financial gain. It's just part of it. And why wouldn't you want to get as much? Why wouldn't you? Should they be more convincing? Should they say, look, we didn't want to appear to be trying to make money, so we just sued them for $50,000, just a symbolic sum.
Everybody's going to be an opportunist. We're all.
Is that realistic? Is that realistic? I mean, in a way, I commend that. Would you commend that? For a symbolic sum just to get the expenses of the court case?
And
that's it. We're not trying to make any money. That would, you could say in one way, that would add a lot of.
It's not just the victims, man. You got the law team, the lawyers saying, "Hey, man, let's take them to cleaners. We can get so much money," because they aim to make money too. Everybody does. The council,
and that ties into my earlier point. If it's true. It's really looking likely that it's true. And if it's true, why would you not want to get as much money off these people and their organization and their estate as possible? If you or I were the two boys, if you or I were these two boys, would we really we would want to clean them for as much money as possible.
Yeah. You'd want to take them you'd want to hit them where it hurts. Yeah. At this point though, like I said, you're hurting the kids and you're hurting the estate because he's dead. But no, I'm 100% with you on that. I think to close it out, I'll say the final statement here that back in the day, I would have said someone like Michael Jackson, you know what? We can't prove anything. I think he's definitely weird and messed up in the head. But I'm really on the fence. I don't know. I don't know that it was true, but that was a pre-Bill Cosby world. No one would have thought someone like Bill Cosby would have been capable of something so heinous. He had the squeaky clean image. He built up an entire persona, which, by day was probably right. Absolutely. But you know what? Shocking. Isn't that what sociopaths do? Sociopaths, they sell you on something so hard. But now that we live in a post-Bill Cosby world.
Have you heard of Rolf Harris as well?
No.
That's another one mentioning. So I told you about Jimmy Savile. Rolf Harris is an Australian who came over here. He lived over here for many years, and he was like a children's artist, and he was like the most likable and affable children's TV. He was to paint pictures, I think, and draw pictures for kids. He had a TV show. He was famous. He was knighted, I think. He met the Queen. This is a huge guy, and he'd been harassing and abusing a pedophile just the same way.
Bottom line, 10 years ago, I would have sooner said, yeah, Michael Jackson. Yeah. Okay. I'll sooner say that he touched kids than Bill Cosby as a serial rapist. Yeah. You know what I mean? So now that we've seen the Bill Cosby thing come to fruition, definitely. I mean, yeah, I would not be surprised. And also that's the best thing that could happen for the defense. If this is true, if this really happened and he's guilty, I hope we have the Bill Cosby effect, because when we had someone accuse Bill Cosby, they all started getting empowered, right? Because people were coming forward. And then you had tons of women just coming with similar stories and everything else. Okay. The old expression, 100 people can't be wrong. In the Me Too era, it's sort of become one person can't be wrong, which is bad. Yeah. But I still believe power in numbers. So this documentary with Michael Jackson's been out for a week now, and we haven't had any more people. I'm hoping, if it is true, that these guys start a trickle domino effect. And then, you do have all the people coming out, because that's only going to strengthen it. But you
were saying like you're hoping that because the director said that he said, or I don't know if he says in the documentary, if you saw in an interview, but he says that he believes and he knows, or he's certain that there's quite a few more kids.
Bring it forward.
Be tens of kids, of other individuals that have been abused by Michael Jackson.
Then bring it forward, then help it then, because it's an uphill battle going against a dead man, right?
Yeah.
So bring it forward, and we'll see where it all comes from here, because we keep comparing it We keep comparing apples to apples like Michael Jackson's any other normal textbook pedophile, but he's not. He's not. We could always say like, okay, well, going off what these kids are saying in their stories, he's doing what traditional pedophiles do. Everything's adding up, but he's not a normal person. He has so much advantage. He is Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
He is an anomaly. He is someone that is, nobody was like him. You can't compare him and his situation to anybody else. So it is weird because it's like, well, is he just fucking weird or is he a fucking pedophile? Because there's all these other things that come into fact. He's not a normal guy. There's the flamboyancy. There's just the fucked up face. He was a weird guy. So it's really hard to peg statistics on him, right? So I'll say that I'm looking forward to seeing what happens from this, and if there's going to be more people trying to make a dime off this.
That would add a lot of credence to these two.
It would.
These two boys' case.
People were coming out of the woodwork a lot faster in Cosby. For Cosby, I'll just say that. So
same with Harvey Weinstein, and same with a lot of other cases.
Now the difference here, though,
Jimmy Savile case.
The difference here is that Michael's dead, and Harvey Weinstein and these Kevin Spacey's and all these people.
Jimmy Savile, similar one. Yeah, he passed away, and then people came out like in their 10s.
But the people like Bill Cosby, they weren't looking to make money or anything like that. They just wanted to see him go down. That was super, dude. That was the most honest thing in the world. That was the most honest portrayal of trying to take someone down that deserved it I've ever seen. So if it's true, I hope it happens, but we'll see how it unravels from here though. So watch the documentary. Looking forward to hearing what you say. If it spins you another way, if it changes your mind, or I don't know. But and also in the comments below, if you guys are listening to this podcast, let us know what you think about it. I think it's a pretty hot topic for debate, and I wouldn't imagine there's too many Michael defenders, but there's still Michael defenders. There are. Right. And there's people.
I've been seeing quite a few on the TV shows, on the tubes. So
there's quite a
few.
You know, and I have to wonder. It's a
lot of fans. You know, there's a lot of hardcore fans out there, and they mostly support him.
I could understand R. Kelly if he's found guilty. You know, let's definitely scrub him. Or Bill Cosby found guilty. He was found guilty. We're gonna pull all his shows from syndication. You know, within the first day or two that this documentary aired, The Simpsons, they pulled their classic season 3 episode, I believe, with Michael Jackson, where he voiced a character that has nothing to do with kids or pedophilia. It's just they scrubbed it from streaming services. It's not going to be printed and included on any future pressings of the actual DVDs and seasons.
That one I don't understand. I don't understand why.
That one's weird to me.
What that would do.
That's weird to me because, like I said, why are we deleting history? You might as well rip out the history books that you're taught about the Holocaust. That was bad. That's proven to be bad, but we still teach people about the Holocaust. You can go to American public schools, middle school, high school, you can find Mein Kampf. You can check it out in your public school where kids, underage kids, we keep history alive, even the bad stuff. How is deleting a Simpsons episode too much different?
No, you go back and watch that and you're just like, it reminded me of a time when MJ was like the biggest star in the world, and it's a historical record, isn't it, of sorts.
And you know what? It makes you not forget that either. Don't we want to? Is that not why we still talk about the Holocaust? History repeats itself when we forget it.
Look, at this time, he was, you're a big star when you get on The Simpsons.
And look how big he was, and he was able to take advantage of a platform. You don't want to forget this stuff. We don't forget Hitler.
And it's not like the episode in any way sort of excuses him or glorifies or showed him as like with kids or like exonerates him or anything.
If anything, it just kind of discredits the other people that put all the hard work. It seems
to be like this knee-jerk reaction to appease the more vocal
saving face
kind of Twitter trolls.
Saving face. And it like I said,
I'm not sure what it does or what it achieves. But
it's like when Kevin Spacey goes down and you have Baby Driver that's getting released. And Baby Driver is a really good movie. And you know what? If we sit there and just say, hey, forget Baby Driver, we're pulling it. Well, you're discrediting all the people that wrote the movie, Edgar Wright, who directed and wrote it, and all the other cast. It's like Kevin Spacey was just a hired gun. He came in, we cast him, he read the lines. It's not quite fair to everybody else involved with it. So there's a gray area there. But at the end of the day, it's up to Fox. It's up to The Simpsons. They can do what they want. I question it sometimes, right? Because we're not supposed to forget this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I fully agree with you there. I think, we've been seeing a lot of that happening. We've seen people, because they might have wrote or said something that was acceptable in their time or was just common in their time, and because it doesn't fit in with our view of morality or political correctness today, that they're being scrubbed away from things. I don't agree with that. I think it's a historical record of what it was like in those times, and for better or for worse, we know that those things happen, and just scrubbing them. And then I also do kind of believe that I don't personally think that people's songs or their art necessarily has to be taken down. Not everyone will agree with me there. And
like
that's
I
fine.
said, they tend to draw the line at pedophilia. It is funny how they draw the line at pedophilia.
Yeah,
but,
well, I mean, I'm almost inclined to agree with this.
But you almost want to have a rule and you want to blanket it. You don't want to have exceptions because like, well, that's my rule, right?
So if someone was a murderer, like, yeah, so it's murder and pedophilia.
Tim Lambesis of that band As I Lay Dying, that guy was arrested. He did time for hiring a hitman to murder his wife.
Yeah.
And you think he would be scrubbed? No, he got out of prison some months ago and he got the band back together and people were excited about it. Like, whoa, so murdering a woman is okay, but you sexually harass a woman in Hollywood, you're scrubbed, your career's done. But you try to murder the mother of your kids and that's okay.
Yeah,
it's out of whack. It's really out of whack.
It's out of whack. There's an example. Do you know who Gary Glitter is?
Yes, I know Gary Glitter. He was another guy that was kind of flamboyant.
There's a flamboyant pop
Gary
star.
Yeah.
I actually personally haven't heard much of his music. It's kind of like a glam rock sort of thing. And he was a notorious child abuser and pedophile. And I was speaking to a friend the other day and I asked him, and I was actually quite surprised because he's someone that would have been but he said, you know what? I still from time to time will listen to a Gary Glitter song. And this is not like somebody who's like an apologist for bad behavior, for abuse. You know, he's a super liberal guy. So I was quite surprised, but I do kind of agree in the same way. Like I personally wouldn't listen to Gary Glitter, but I wouldn't stop. You know, if I heard MJ, I wouldn't switch off the channel if I heard an MJ song come on. His songs are incredible, and I think they're just a historical record of good art and good music. And I think the fact that he was a messed up and vile sexual abuser, if this is proven.
Well, I respect that opinion, and I will leave it at. I also respect the opinions of people that choose to not listen to that stuff anymore, right? And just kind of like shove it out of their lives the best they can. To each their own on that.
I really wouldn't hold it against them. Like I wouldn't be. I'm not gunning for people to play it everywhere. This is in extreme situations.
Look,
like
draw the line. Look, what's that Ian Watson guy? What was that? Lost Prophets, that band?
That guy? Yeah. What was the Lost Prophets thing? I just remind me.
He was fucking babies.
Oh,
babies.
Yeah.
Like
heinous.
And he was fucking the baby of the mother of the baby. And the mother was in on it too.
Oh my God.
Like the most heinous. See, I don't think there's anybody that's like, well, I can still listen.
When you hear that, you kind of go like, fuck it. I don't want to listen to that.
You have lines, right?
I don't want to listen to that. I mean, I can't say for sure because I don't.
It's like, how do you have to?
But like, how can I say yes to that?
Exactly.
How can I sit here and say, you know what? I'm still going to listen to it because I love that Lost Prophets song.
People have lines, and some people's thresholds are
like
different.
What threshold? Like,
it's like, oh, how do you top 7-year-old boys? Fucking babies. It's just so. It is what it is.
Yeah, I should be clear about that. Like
it's a weird thing. It is. It really is.
I do not hold it. I generally believe. I definitely believe that we should separate art from the artist, and I think that it's a slippery slope when you scrub people away. I definitely am against that. But if you bring up an example like that, like I want nothing. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see that.
To be fair, Lost Prophets didn't make that much of a cultural impact besides like that Last Train Home song. They're not Michael Jackson. We could forget about them.
Please.
We could forget about them. But let's leave it there, man. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. We got another episode with you as well in the pipeline where we discuss some political viewpoints, of American politics. You obviously being a gentleman from Europe, how do you perceive what's going on in the area of that, which is quite controversial these days, versus someone like me who's obviously American.
Yeah.
And but as far as this goes, everybody, let us know what you think on the whole Michael Jackson debate. If you guys are listening on YouTube, make sure you're liking and subscribing. Make sure you're checking us out on all podcast networks. Links are below. We're everywhere that you get your podcast, trust me. And check out all the other shows that we have on the Revival House Network. That's all we got for now. John, thanks again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Bye-bye, puppets.
Bye-bye.